Good to everyone. I'm John Marie Angkos, and I am the second representative that will present about the chapter 17.4 topic in East Asian world, which is the about Korea and Vietnam. The learning objective of this committee is that the delegates will be able to know about the development of Korean civilization. They will be able to understand the uniqueness of Vietnamese civilization, and this will allow simplify the contribution of China for these two civilizations. The history of human activity in Korea can be traced far into the Paleolithic period, about 500,000 years ago. The beginning of Korean history is often dated to 2333 BC, when King Tangun, a legendary born of the son of heaven and a woman for birth, Totem tribe, established the first kingdom named Joseon, literally meaning the land of the morning calm. While the historicity of the Tangon myth is disputed among scholars, it is known that the ancient Korea was characterized by the clan communities which combined to form small town states. They rose and fell so that by the 1st century BC, three kingdoms Goguryeo, Baekje, and Silla had emerged on the Korean peninsula and part of what is now known as Manchuria. The dynasty had been founded by the military commander Yi Seung-gi in the late 14th century and immediately set out to establish close political and cultural relations with the Ming dynasty from their new capital at Seoul, located on the Han River. Han River had been valuable river transportation route since ancient times, particularly during the Joseon dynasty. Korea is a large peninsula lying between China on the west and north and China to the east. Mountains and hills make up about 70% of the country. Korea's economics is subsistent on hunting, fishing, and gathering, also trading products such as iron, gold, silver, copper, ginseng, hemp goods, pine nuts, furniture, paper, and horses. Also silk, tea, spices, medicine, ceramic books, and writing materials. Agriculture was first practiced from the second millennium BCE and aided by the introduction of rice cultivation from China by 700 BCE. And these were the inventions during Korean civilization: movable metal type printing, gold crowns of Silla, superb Celadon ceramics, the oldest astronomical observatory in Asia, bronze Buddhist figurines, and stone pagodas. Also, the Hanji and Undol writing system in Korea civilization known as Hanja was developed, which used Chinese characters but adapted them to the Korean language and Korean pronunciation. Well over half a millennium, Hanja was the only system of writing Korean. However, it was extremely difficult to master. Therefore, in the 15th century, Sejong the Great created Hangul as writing system that was designed to be easy for anyone to learn. Three Kingdoms period. Joseon's territories would later become Goguryeo, while the southern part of the Korea at this time, often referred to as the Proto-Three Kingdoms period, was split into the three Hans of Byeonhan, Mahan, and Jenhan, which became the three states of Baekje, Gaya, and Silla in the subsequent Three Kingdoms period. These kingdoms benefited from the sophisticated culture brought by refugees from the collapsed Gojoseon and defeated Wiwam Goson states. Goguryeo, with its capital of Pyongyang, particularly prospered in the 5th century CE during the reign of Gwanggaeto the Great, who lived up to his other title of broad expander of domain and permitted Goguryeo to dominate northern Korea, most of Manchuria, and portion of Inner Mongolia. Silla, meanwhile, with its capital of Gyeongsang, flourished under the reign of King Bopong, achieving a much greater degree of centralization and prospering on the eastern coast due to agricultural innovation such as oxen-drawn plows and irrigation system. Gaya's peace between its more powerful neighbors in the south of the peninsula never fully developed into a centralized kingdom. Silla captured the Gaya ruling state Gomwan Gaya in 532 CE, and the state collapsed completely a few decades later. Baekje had done well in the late 4th century BCE under King Gonchogo and had formed its capital at Hansong. An alliance with Silla between 433 and 553 CE brought some stability, but in 554 CE at the Battle of Wansanchong Fortress, Baekje tried to reclaim territory it had lost to a Silla invasion, and their 30,000 strong army was defeated and the Baekje king Song killed. The system of government of the three kingdoms was much as it would remain for the rest of history of ancient Korea. A monarch ruled with the aid of senior administrative official drawn from a landed aristocracy. Government-appointed official administered the provinces with the aid of local tribal leaders. Korea's social structure. At the top of the class were the Yangban, part of the traditional ruling class or nobles during the Joseon dynasty. The next one is the Chongin, also Jungin, were the middle class of the Joseon dynasty of Korea. The name Chungin literally means middle people. The next one is the Sangmin, were considered clean workers. The Sangmin consisted of peasants, laborers, fishermen, some craftsmen, and merchants. They paid most of the Korea's taxes and were subject to the military draft. The last one, where the Chungmin was considered as unclean by the upper classes. This list of unclean professions included slaves, butchers, shamans, shoemakers, metal workers, prostitutes, magicians, and performers like the Kaesaying. The Korean religion. The Korean states, traditionally practitioners of shamanism, adopted first Confucianism, then Taoism and Buddhism from China, with Korea making the latter the official state religion from the 4th century CE. Shamanism. The oldest religious ideas in Korea are called shamanism today. These are beliefs that the natural world is filled with spirits, both helpful and harmful, that can be addressed by people with special powers called shamans. Herbal medicines, dance, chants, and other ceremonies mark the work of shamans, most of whom are women. Taoism. Taoism, the Chinese philosophy that stresses living simply, honestly, and in harmony with nature, has played in Korea's history. Taoism had played a part in molding Korean thought. It had been as overtly present as Confucianism and Buddhism, but it still played a role in shaping the country. Confucianism. The Confucian system began to become important in Korea's kingdom in the 7th century AD and became the official state cult in the 14th century with the Joseon dynasty. Confucian principles were followed in the state administration and were an essential part of entrance exam to position within the system. This is seen in the way families are organized, in devotion to ancestors, and in everyday behavior. Buddhism was the strongest faith, though, and temples and monasteries sprang up everywhere. The Buddhist temple monasteries with their landed states, royal patronage, and exemption from tax became wealthy, and the whole religious apparatus revolved that of the state itself. Buddhism was practiced not only by the elite families, which often sent a son to study at monastery and became a monk, but also by the lower classes. Vietnam, the perils of empire. Gung Nguyen's military tactics used to expel the Chinese in 939 were imitated by later generals in the course of Vietnamese history. His reign marked a turning point for Vietnam. Although China attacked repeatedly in the centuries to come, the kingdom of Nam Viet remained autonomous until the French seized control in the 19th century. Geography. Red River Delta and Mekong Delta. The Li rulers established their capital at Thang Long, Hanoi, in the heart of the Red River Delta and modernized the agricultural system. Geography in Red River Delta is characterized by flat topography with dense rivers and streams, which creates favorable conditions to develop transportation and infrastructures in system in this region. Rice is the most important crop. It is grown principally in the Red and Mekong River deltas. Other major food crops are sugarcane, cassava, corn, sweet potatoes, and The economics in pre-colonial Vietnam was agriculture. Wet rice culture began in the Red River Delta. With the development of dikes, Vietnam became the cradle of forest products, either as a commodity or tribute. The Dutch East Indies Company became active in trade with the Southern Kingdom under the Nguyen lords. Western weapons in exchange of local products were the highlights of economic activity. Politics in Vietnam. The independent Vietnam was ruled like China by a series of imperial dynasties. The greatest of these was the Li, established when Li Loi, who still has a street named after him in every city, expelled the last set of Chinese oppressors. The Li dynasty expanded south to take over the Champa kingdom, inhabited by people of Malay origin, and established the boundaries of modern Vietnam. Li Taito and some of his successors introduced many reforms. They gave the Viet a highly sophisticated legal code, promoted art, literature, and education, advanced agriculture, protected common lands against the greed of large landowners, and even enforced a general redistribution of land among the entire population at the expense of the large landowners. Vietnam social class. At the top of the social hierarchy were the Si, or which refers to the scholars or intellectuals who led relatively comfortable lives in respective occupation, such as doctors, mandarins, and teachers. Below the class of scholars was the largest social grouping in Vietnamese society: farmers, primarily rice farmers, who could be further subdivided into three different groups according to land ownership: Trong Nong, Bang Nong, and Co Nong. The third class was craftsmen, whose numbers were relatively small compared to farmers. Some were actually farmers who had developed skills in crafts such as carpentry, weaving, or blacksmithing. At the bottom of the social hierarchy were merchants. Traditional self-sufficient economy merchants actually played a very insignificant role. Traditional Confucian society also disapproved of the mercantile practice of buying cheap. Their philosophy. Vietnamese religion was a syncretic amalgamation of three great religions of East Asia: Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, and to which had been added a rich variety of pre-existing animist beliefs. All Vietnamese believe in this single religious conflation in one form or another, but these forms varied greatly. Scholar officials gave more weight to Confucian teachings. Common people put more emphasis on Buddhism and on Taoism in its popular religious form.